For 2 years, I raised a child who wasn't mine. I paid for his food. I stayed awake at night when he cried. I called him my son. And the man who made him was my own brother. A story about adultery. This is a story about sacrifice and what happens when you feed the people who will destroy you. Henri and Stéphane in Botibi were just children when their world collapsed. Henri and Stéphane in Botibi were just children when their world collapsed. After losing both parents at a young age, they were left at the mercy of greedy uncles who stripped them of their inheritance, leaving the two brothers with nothing but each other. Henri, the eldest, made a silent vow. He was only a teenager, but he chose to abandon his own dreams to become a father to his younger brother. While Stéphane was brilliant in school, Henri was a fighter. He took every odd job, worked in the shadows, and saved every penny to ensure Stéphane never felt the sting of poverty. He didn't just provide food, he provided a future. Henri invested everything into Stéphane, eventually financing his studies in Europe. He stayed behind in the dust and heat of his home country, working to send money across the ocean, proud to see his little brother become a big man with a foreign degree. While Stéphane was building a life in Europe, Henri was building a home. He found a woman, Sophie, and they started a family. They had a child, a little boy, who was now 2 years old for Henri. This was the ultimate reward. His brother was a success abroad, and he had a wife and son at home. He lived a simple life of hard work and devotion. When Stéphane finally decided to return to his home country in late 2025 for a vacation, Henri opened his doors wide. He welcomed his brother into his home, his sanctuary, believing that their bond was unbreakable. He wanted to show Stéphane the family he had built, the child he had raised, and the life he had maintained. He saw Stéphane's return as a victory for the Botibi name. He had no way of knowing that the brother he had created through years of sweat and sacrifice was coming back not as a guest, but as a predator. The setup was perfect for a tragedy, a grateful brother returning to a loving home, while a secret from the past sat waiting in the living room, ready to tear the family apart. The betrayal didn't take years, it took only days. Within a week of Stéphane's arrival, the atmosphere in Henri's home began to rot. Henri, trusting and blind, noticed his wife Sophie acting strangely. The house felt heavy with a tension he couldn't name. It started with whispers and ended with a discovery that shattered his reality. Henri found messages on Sophie's phone, intimate, romantic, and undeniable. His own brother, the man whose education he had paid for, was flirting with his wife under his own roof. But Henri is a man of peace. He didn't want to believe it. He followed them secretly and watched as they met, talked, and disappeared together into a taxi. When he finally confronted Sophie, she didn't apologize. She admitted it. But she didn't just admit to a fling. She told him she was seeing Stéphane because they were childhood sweethearts. The shock was total. Stéphane hadn't just made a mistake. He was reclaiming a territory he believed was his. Instead of backing down when caught, the younger brother's arrogance was chilling. He didn't move out to give Henri space. Sophie moved out to live with him. Within 3 months of Stéphane's return, Henri went from being a happy father and husband to a man living in an empty house, watching his wife and brother build a life together just a few miles away. The betrayal was public and shameless. Stéphane, with the coldness of a man who feels superior because of his European education, looked at Henri and told him that his financing of his life was irrelevant. He didn't feel he owed Henri a debt of gratitude. He felt Henri was just a placeholder. The brother Henri had loved and protected was gone, replaced by a man who saw Henri's wife as a prize he was entitled to take back. The man who had been sent to Europe to learn medicine or law had returned with a masterclass in psychological warfare against his own blood. When the two brothers finally faced each other on a public platform, the mask of the successful younger brother fell away to reveal a heart of pure stone. Stéphane didn't show an ounce of remorse. In fact, he mocked Henri. When Henri spoke about the money he spent to send him to Europe, Stéphane sneered at him, questioning Henri's intellect and his use of the language. He claimed that Henri didn't finance him, but that they had simply worked together, erasing years of Henri's manual labor with a single wave of his hand. Stéphane's logic was twisted. He claimed that because he had known Sophie first, before his departure to Europe, she belonged to him by right of first possession. He accused Henri of being the intruder in their story. Stéphane's defense was built on a foundation of extreme ingratitude. He told Henri that he had asked for a photo of Henri's sweetheart while he was in Europe, and that if Henri had sent one, this could have been avoided. He blamed Henri for the surprise. It was a classic move of a narcissist, shifting the blame of adultery onto the victim of the betrayal. Stéphane sat there, well-dressed and articulate, claiming that the flame between him and Sophie had never died, and that as soon as he returned, it was only natural for them to resume their affair. He saw no problem with the fact that Sophie was the mother of his brother's child. He saw no problem with the fact that he was sleeping with his brother's wife in the very house Henri had built. To Stéphane, his European degree made him more worthy of Sophie than a man who had stayed behind to work the land. He looked at his elder brother, the man who had been his father figure, and spoke to him as if he were a common enemy, someone to be defeated and humiliated. The vacation had turned into a hostile takeover of a man's entire life. Just when the audience thought the story couldn't get more toxic, Sophie delivered the final, fatal blow. As she stood between the two brothers, she looked at Henri and told him the words that no man can ever recover from. She told him that she never loved him. She said she only accepted his dowry, because she was lonely and Stéphane was away. But then came the true horror. She looked Henri in the eye and revealed the secret of the 2-year-old boy. "The child," she said with a voice as cold as ice, "is not yours." The child Henri had celebrated, the child he had stayed up with at night, the child he had spent every cent to feed and clothe for 2 years, was actually Stéphane's. The timeline was a nightmare of deception. Stéphane had returned briefly on a vacation 2 years prior, and in that short window, he and Sophie had conceived a child behind Henri's back. For 2 years, Henri had been raising his own nephew, thinking it was his son, while his wife and brother kept the truth hidden. Even more disturbing was Stéphane's reaction. He knew, he had known the whole time. He admitted that the money he had been sending back from Europe wasn't for Henri's household, it was secretly for his child. They had used Henri as a babysitter and a financial backup while they waited for the right moment to reunite. The level of sorcery and psychological cruelty was beyond comprehension. Sophie sat there and laughed at Henri's pain, telling him he should be grateful she was even telling him now. She dismissed his 2 years of fatherhood as a simple service he had provided while Stéphane was busy. Henri wasn't just a cuckolded husband, he was a man whose entire legacy had been stolen. The son he loved was a living monument to his brother's betrayal. The ending of the encounter was not one of reconciliation, but of impending disaster. Henri, a man pushed beyond the limits of human endurance, exploded in a rage that the cameras could barely contain. He didn't want to hear about forgiveness. He didn't want to hear about the Bible. He looked at his brother and his former wife and issued a terrifying ultimatum: "You will not see the end of this year." The atmosphere turned from a family dispute into a death watch. Henri withdrew his threats of physical violence under pressure, but his heart was hardened. He left the stage a broken man, a man who had lost his parents, his inheritance, his wife, his brother, and finally his son, all in one afternoon. The pastor's verdict was a grim warning to Stéphane and Sophie. He told them they were building the bed of a curse. He warned Stéphane that a woman who would betray one brother in his own house would eventually betray the other. He called Sophie a woman without shame, someone who had turned brothers into enemies for her own comfort. But Stéphane remained unrepentant, clinging to his childhood love as a shield against the immorality of his actions. The brothers, who were the only two left of their bloodline, were now separated by a wall of blood and hatred that could never be torn down. The story ends with a family in ruins, a child whose identity is a weapon, and a man who sacrificed everything only to realize he had been nourishing the very people who would eventually destroy him. It is a raw, brutal reminder that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you fed with your own hands.